Hey, how are you doing this fine feathered Sunday morning? Well, we're looking at Genesis 32, or sorry, 42. And this is where the last one we looked at, uh, Joseph, was put in charge of 7 years of famine and 7 years of prosperity. Now we're going to go into what happens in that time of famine. We've looked at the 7 years of um, plenty. Now we're going to look at the 7 years of famine. Say a word prayer. Abba, Father, thank you for this day. May your words go forth, prick spirits and unhardened hearts. And we say these things in Yeshua's name. Amen. And Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt. This is Joseph's father, and said to his sons, "Why do you look on upon one another?" And he said, "Behold, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down thither and buy grain for us from hence in order that we may live and not die." Thither means quickly, fast. And Joseph's 10 brethren took down to buy grain out of Egypt. But Benjamin, and if you remember way back, Benjamin was the youngest of Jacob's sons. Joseph's brother, Jacob, sat not with his brothers, for he said, lest mischief may have befall him. So he was very protective of his son Benjamin, because he lost his son Joseph to what he thinks is animal attack. So the sons of Israel came to buy grain among those that came from the famine was in the land of Canaan. See, Canaan suffered very greatly during this time because they weren't made aware of what Egypt's king heard. So they were out of the loop and they had no idea. So this is where the story gets very interesting. And Joseph was the governor over the land. Joseph was their brother that they sold into slavery. It was that sold the corn and all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down to him, their faces to the earth. See, they didn't know who he was. This had been a few years, and Joseph grew, and of course his face changed, Maybe he had a beard. Maybe he was clean shaven. It doesn't specifically say, but they didn't recognize him. And Joseph saw his brother and knew them. And he made himself strange to them. And he spoke roughly to them and said to them, "Hence you come." And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." He already knew that. Okay? When we face our enemies, we tend to be cruel, vindictive, and not so very nice. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they did not know him. And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamt of them. And he said to them, "You are spies to see the exposed places in the land you are come." And they said to him, "No, my lord, but to buy food." "Are thy servants come?" "We are all one man's sons. We are honest. Thy servants are not spies." At this point, they feared for their life because this man had power to kill them with just a word to the guard. And he said to them, "No, but to see the exposed places of the land are ye come." So he reedified and restated that they were spies. And they said, "Thy servants were 12 brethren, sons of one man, in the land of Canaan, and behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not." Joseph said to them, "What is that I have spoken to you, saying you are spies?" So he accused them again. By now, they would be pretty fearful and probably shaking and worried about their lives and how he could snuff them out. "By this ye shall be put to the proof. As Pharaoh lives, ye shall not go forth hence, unless your youngest brother come hither." Come quickly, in other words. "Send no one of you, that he may fetch your brother. But you shall be imprisoned, and your words shall be put to the proof, whether the truth is in you, or if not, as Pharaoh lives, ye are spies." But they put them in custody 3 days. The prisons at this time were unbelievably unkept. Buckets to urinate and go poo in, stinks and smells, and they didn't have running water. This must have been torture for them. And Joseph said to them the 3rd day, "This do, what ye may live. I fear God. If ye are honest, let one of your brothers remain behind in the house of your prison, and go ye, carrying grain for the hungry of your households, and bring your younger brother to me, in order that your words be verified, and that ye may not die. So he threatened them with death, and out of sheer fear, and they did so. Then they said one to another, we are indeed guilty concerning our brother, whose anguish of soul we saw when we bestowed us, and we did not hearken, therefore his distress is come to us. So God's wrath came back on them, is what they were saying. And Reuben answered them, saying, did I not speak to you, saying, do not sin against the lad? But ye did not hearken. And now behold, his blood also is required. So, referring to the youngest son, and Reuben was going to go back and save his brother Joseph from the cistern, but they changed their mind and sold him to a traveling caravan, which in turn sold them to the Egyptians. And they did not know that Joseph understood, for he, the interpreter, was between them. So he did not use his own voice. He spoke in Egyptian to the interpreter, pretending that he could not speak Canaanite. And he turned away from them and wept. And he returned to them and spoke to them, and took Simon from among them, and bound him before their eyes. This must have been so terrifying to them, to think that this man who has the power to have them killed by just a word. And Joseph gave orders to fill their satchels with corn, and restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And thus did they to them. So Joseph's godly form took on new meaning here, and he forgave his brothers and made sure that they had enough to eat on the way back, and restored their money. And they loaded their asses with their grain and departed hence. They probably wanted to get out of Dodge because they were afraid that Joseph would change his mind. And one of them opened his sack to give his ass food in the inn, and saw the money, and behold, it was in the mouth of his sack. He must have just started shaking and sweating and beginning to think, I'm a dead man. And he said to his brothers, my money is returned to me, and behold, it is even in my sack. And their heart filled them, and they were afraid, saying, No, one to another, what is this that God has done to us? So instead of thanking for a blessing, they blamed God and thought it was a punishment for what they did to their brother. And they came into the land of Canaan to Jacob and his son, and told him all that had happened them, saying, And the man, the Lord of the land, spoken roughly to us, and threatened us as spies of the land. And he said to him, We are honest, we are not spies. So they took offense by it. We are 12 brethren, sons of our father. One is not, and the youngest is this day with the father in the land of Canaan. And the man of the Lord of the land said to us, Hereby shall I know that you are honest. Leave one of your brethren with me, and take for the hunger of your household, and go. So he sent them on their way with fear in their heart. And bring your younger brother to me, and I shall know that you are not spies, but are honest. Your brother will I give up to you, and ye may tend in the land, trade in the land, And it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, and behold, every man's money had his bundle of money in his sack. And they saw their bundles of money and their father, and were afraid. This, is a no. And Jacob their father said to them, Ye have behaved me for children. Joseph is not, and Simon is not, and ye will not take Benjamin. All these things are against me. And Reuben spoke to his father, saying, Slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not back to thee. Give him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, My son shall not go with you, for his brethren is dead, and he alone is left. And if mischief should befall him by the way in which you go, then would ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow and soul? So Jacob would not change his mind. Now we're going to Matthew 16. So we open in Matthew 16 with the Pharisees and Sadducees coming to him, which is Jesus, and asking him, tempting him to show them a sign out of heaven. They wanted to goad him. They wanted to make him sin. But he answered, said to them, when evening is come, ye say, fine weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning a sun, today, for the sun is red. And lowering, ye know how to discern the face of the sky, but ye cannot the signs of the times. In other words, they could read astrophysiology and the star charts, but they couldn't understand the signs and wonders in the Bible. A wicked and adulterous generation seek after a sign, and a sign shall not be given to it save the sign of Jonas. And he left them and went away. And when his disciples came to the other side, they had forgotten to take bread. And Jesus said to them, see and beware of the heaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. So he warned them of the leaders and the scribes and the prophets, not prophets, priests of the day, because they were brutes and vipers and liars. And Jesus said to them, see and beware of leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. And they responded among themselves, saying, because we have taken no bread? So they were wondering, say to themselves, what are you talking about, teacher? And Jesus, knowing it, said, my reason ye among yourselves, O ye of little faith, because you have not taken no bread? Do you not understand, nor remember the 5 loaves and the 5,000, and how many hand baskets you took up? They forget the miracles. As human beings, we have a tendency to forget. He, Jesus, continues, nor the 7 loaves of the 4,000, and how many baskets you took up. And how do you not understand that it was not concerning bread? I said you, beware of the heaven and of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they comprehended that he did not speak of being beware of the leaven of the bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and Sadducees. And today, we are in this day and age where these fake teachers, false teachings, and prophets and prophesying is a mockery to God. But when Jesus was come into the parts of Caesarea Philippi, he damned of his disciples, saying, why do men say that I am the Son of Man? Am? So it was a question. And they said, some, John the Baptist, and others, Elias, and others, and again Germanus of one of the prophets. He says to them, But ye, who do ye say that I am? And Simon Peter answered him, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered him, saying, Because art thou son of Barjona, for flesh and blood has not revealed it to thee, but my Father who is in the heavens. So he gave credit to Abba, Father, not to Simon Peter. And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and this is my rock. I will build my assembly, and Hades' gates shall not prevail against it. What is he referring to here? See, Peter was a Jew, and he was in charge, and the rock to take the Jews from Judaism to Christianity. This is what he was referring to. And because the gates of hell and the demons and the oppressors are in the churches, our Messiah is going to build gates that shall not prevail against it. And I will give to thee the keys of the kingdom of the heavens, and whosoever thou mayest bind upon the earth shall be bound in the heavens, and whatsoever thou mayest loose on earth shall be loosed in heavens. This is a scripture that is many times misinterpreted. Jesus, our Messiah, is not saying that the sins of the world will follow them to heaven. No, the sins of the world end here when we die. He that enjoyed his disciples that they should say to no man that he is the Christ. He said this not because it wasn't true, but because he feared for their lives. For the time Jesus began to sow to his disciples, and he must go away to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and the third day be raised. So as we see, he begins to pour his knowledge, wisdom, and godly power into his disciples. And Peter, talking to him being to rebuke him, saying, God be favorable to thee, Lord, this shall in no wise be unto thee. But turning around, he said to Peter, Get away behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense to me. For thy mind is not the things that are of God, but the things that are of men. In other words, what happened here is a demon took possession, oppressed Peter, and he said these things, and our Messiah called him on it. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If any one of you desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." See, on the battlefield, you have a team, but you fight one-on-one. And you must be able to fight the good fight. For whosoever shall desire to save his life shall lose it. But whosoever shall lose his life for my sake shall find it. Many, many times we hear in the Bible of school shootings, martyrs that are being martyred by Islamic and ISIS. These children of God go directly to be with him and have a high stature in heaven. Because for a man or a woman to give up their life for Jesus is the ultimate reverent example. See here what he says, for whosoever shall desire to save his life, save his own skin, save his life, protect his life and turn, those over, But whosoever shall lose his life for my sake shall find it. So if we devote ourselves to our Messiah totally, utterly, and without rhyme or reason, we will be edified in heaven. For what does a man profit if he should gain the whole world and suffer the loss of his souls? And what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? This is an example of money is the root of all evil. If we put anything ahead of God, that's a very bad thing to do. For if you put anything against God and say, this is greater than He, you are exchanging your soul and giving up your eternal kingdom. This is a blasphemy act. For the Son of Man is about to come in glory, and for his Father this is angels. And then he will render to each according to his doings. We are judged by our works and our deeds. Verily, verily, I say unto you, there are some of those standing here that shall not taste of death, and until they shall have seen the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. some children of God, as Elijah and Elijah, did not see death. They were taken up in heaven bodily and became immortal souls because of their faith in God. Make no mistake, if we put our Messiah ahead of our carnal desires and wants, man, the benefits are so outstanding. Heaven is a place of tranquility, peace, contentment, and awness. Abba, Father, thank you for being here with us. Bless, guide, strengthen, and keep us. As we go our separate ways today, bring us back here tomorrow as we say these things. In your name, Jesus. Amen.